Peace was good. Welcome to the Hip Hop Album Review. This is part 70. The album that we'll be reviewing today is L. Cool J's 7th album, Phenomenon, released in 1997. Give you guys a little brief history of who L. Cool J is. He's an MC from Queens, New York, Hollis, Queens. He got his start back in 1984. He made a joint called I Need a Beat. He made the beat and all that shit, and it caught the ears of Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons. If you guys don't know who Russell Simmons or Rick Rubin are, I don't know what to tell you. Obviously, you guys don't know hip hop. But anyways, getting back to that. Nah, I'm just playing. If you guys don't know, they founded Def Jam. They were college roommates. They founded Def Jam and all that shit. But anyways, caught the ears of Rick Rubin and Russell Simmons, and so they picked him up. They scouted him. They picked him up, put him on their label Def Jam, and L. Cool J put out his first album, Radio, back in 1985. That was a successful album. It's like people started getting to know who he was, but he wasn't as successful until his second album, Bigger and Deffer, that came out 2 years later, back in 1987. That was actually considered his best-selling album to date. It's known for singles like what's the songs? I'm Bad, I Need Love, Bristol Hotel, shit like that. And then he had to release his third album. What's that? Walking with a Panther, that came out back in 1989. A lot of people kind of criticized the album, just saying like it was too commercial. It kind of depended too much on like love ballads and shit like that. It sounded too commercial and too mainstream. You know what I mean? They kind of wanted more of the radio, like with the stripped down beats and stuff like that, with the hard drums and stuff like that. And even though the album sold well, but it just wasn't his his best album to many. And so a year later, in 1990, he teamed up. We collabed with Marley Marl, the legendary Marley Marl producer, one of my favorite producers. He's one of the most underrated, underappreciated producers in my opinion. He teamed up with Marley Marl and made Mama Said Knock You Out. That album to me was pretty much L. Cool J's telling all the people, all the haters, fuck you for, doubting me because I'm making love ballad songs and shit like that. So, that album's like so street, it's so gritty, so street, you know what I mean? It's like one of his most hardcore albums in his discography. Known for songs like Mama Said Knock You Out, The Booming System, Around the Way Girl, shit like that. Definitely one of my favorite L. Cool J albums in my opinion. I do have that in my collection. And 3 years later, in 1993, he had released his his fifth album, 14 Shots to the Dome, released in 1993. That's also one of my favorite L. Cool J albums. That album is pretty much another, to me, Mama Said Knock You Out Part 2, but like with a lot more rough, rugged vibe to it, you know what I mean? It's like a lot more street, more rugged. I feel like that one was very underrated in my opinion, just due to the simple fact that around that time, like, gangster rap was big at the time. With Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, Eazy, Above the Law, shit like that. And L. Cool J was just going for that gangster sound, and a lot of people wasn't really feeling that shit. They kind of felt like he was a gimmick, and with the gangster style. But I thought it was dope, man. It's like he just, I don't know. I don't think he was trying to be gangster. He's just trying something new. You know what I mean? But yeah, I thought that was a dope album. One of my favorite L. Cool J albums. Singles known for is like songs like Pink Cookies in a Plastic Bag Getting Crushed by Buildings, How I'm Coming, Backseat. Very dope album. I highly recommend that album. And then in 1995, 2 years later, after 14 Shots, he had came out with Mr. Smith, another dope album. That's actually so Mama Said Knock You Out, 14 Shots to the Dome, and Mr. Smith, in my opinion, are my favorite albums from the L. Cool J. That album was known for songs like I Shot Ya, Hey Lover, Doing It, dope album. Like, cause the album, Mr. Smith, it had like a mixture of, you know, the love. I guess like the love ballads, like people like to call them, like the, you know, the lovey-dovey songs, and you had some street tracks and some hip hop style tracks, but it worked. It was like a nice mesh. You know what I mean? It wasn't too much of. It wasn't too much of, you know, it wasn't too much hardcore, it wasn't too much commercial sounding songs. It was like a nice mix, and that's why the album is so successful. Yeah, that's a very dope album. I highly recommend that album. And then 2 years later, he had came out with this album, LL Cool J Phenomenon. This is his 7th album, like I said before. All right, this is what the album looks like. This is what the CD looks like. Blue CD right here. Alright, that's what the inside the CD cover looks like. You got like the kind of like the terminal computer, you know, letterings and shit like that. Cause you know around that time, like, you know, late 90s, you know, the whole they was kind of going for like the whole millennium, like the futuristic look to it. Hence, you know, Will Smith's Millennium album that came out, I believe, in like, I think in like '98 or some shit like that. You see LL Cool J just posing right here. You know, back when he was really brolic, you know, it's like we was kind of like buff, you know what I mean? As you can see, that's what the album looks like. LL Cool J just chilling with his outfit, his leather outfit. As you can see, like his previous albums that he came out with, starting with Radio, then Bigger and Deffer, then Walk with a Panther, Mama Said Knock You Out, 14 Shots to the Dome, and Mr. Smith. Alright. Back of the album, that's what it looks like. Alright. This album was executive produced by Sean Puffy Combs or P.Diddy. So you guys know what that means. You know, he had his hands on the production, most of the production, or he had like some influence on the sound of this album, you know. Alright. Producers on the album. Producers. P.Diddy or Sean Puffy Combs. I'm just calling P.Diddy because that's what I'm knowing is now. P.Diddy. Who else? Poke and Tone or Track Masters. LES. Yeah, producer. LES, dope producer from Queensbridge. Next producer is yeah, True Master, another True Master, and Kurt Goldie. Who else? Track Masters again. P.Diddy and Ron Lawrence, Amen Ra, I think that's how you pronounce it. I think it's Amen Ra, Lawrence. Dope producer too. He's done stuff like Where I'm From by Jay-Z. You know, he's known for that beat. Who else? Eric Sermon. He does the 4321 song. He produced that. P.Diddy again. Track Masters. And Stevie J. Stevie J, you guys know Stevie J from Love and Hip Hop, Atlanta. You know what I mean? Alright. Okay. You guys seen that? Alright. 10 tracks on the album. Very short. Guest appearance on the album. Ralph Tresvant and Ricky Bell of New Edition. Ralph Tresvant, dope singer, very underrated in my opinion. Busta Rhymes. They're not credited on the album, on the song, but Boss Was is actually on this album. Keith Sweat and LaShawn. Redman, Method Man, Cannabis, and DMX. Ross Was again. And Tamia. A dope singer. Tamia, you guys might know Tamia from that song she did with Fabulous. I forgot the name of that song, but it was on his, I believe it was on his second album, More Street Dreams. Forget You, some shit like that. I forgot the name of that song, but I do like that song a lot. Alright, singles his album is known for are 4321, Father, and yeah, Father, 4321, and Phenomenon. Yeah, getting through some of the songs. Nothing really much to talk about this album. I'm just gonna give it to you straight up. Didn't care for this album too much. In my opinion, it's definitely one of his weakest albums in his discography. In my opinion, I feel like the problem with this album is that LL Cool J suffered what I like to call the bad boy syndrome. And what I mean by the bad boy syndrome is that around the mid 90s, like I want to say like 96, 97 was when, in 98 I would say is when because people saw the success of Biggie and Mace and the whole Bad Boys camp, where they started doing like more commercial friendly songs by using a lot of 80s top 40 samples, and a lot of people like LL Cool J, Mike Geronimo are prime examples of them suffering from the bad boy syndrome, like just trying to follow that formula, but it didn't really work for them in my opinion. It just didn't really work. LL's part, it did, but it didn't in a sense. I don't know. I was kind of expecting more another Mr. Smith, and that's why a lot of people didn't like this album. I didn't care for this album too much. But the songs I do like Candy. I like Another Dollar. That's another song. That's a song that Boss was featured on, but was never credited. Nobody Can Freak You, featuring Keith Sweat and LaShawn. Self-explanatory, you know what I'm saying? Uses the Steve Arrington sample. Nobody Can Be You, another dope funk track. 4321 featuring Redman, Method Man, Cannabis, and DMX. That song sparked a lot of controversy due to the fact that Cannabis had a line where he said, "Yo, LL, is that a mic on your arm? Can I borrow that?" And L took offense to that. So was in a sense, it's kind of like, I feel what L felt like. It's kind of like a disrespect. Like I don't know. It's kind of petty, but I could see why at the time, LL Cool J, him being a legend, it's kind of like, how dare this fucking newbie, this new jack just, disrespect me like that. So I could see both sides of the spectrum, but I thought Cannabis, I guess he was trying to like, pay homage, but L took that the wrong way, and that's what kind of sparked the beef. So he had tracks like by LL Cool J, like the Ripper Strikes Back, which it was pretty decent. He had he did his thing on that song. He had some vital points, but when Cannabis came out with that song Second Round Knockout, he fucking blew L he blew him out of the water. I'm sorry, Cannabis, he won that battle in my opinion, but a lot of people was kind of hating on Cannabis because because LL's like the more famous MC. But it's funny because those same people that say that shit about LL, like he beat Cannabis, are the same people that diss LL Cool J. I don't know. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It just kind of pisses me off with that. And with hip hop, it's, people that love these hip hop heads, and that's just so fucking hypocritical. But yeah, that song 4321, Wanna Get Paid featuring Los was, that was alright. Father, there was a single for that. It's pretty much sort of about like domestic violence in the household. The father being abusive. I think he talks about his father being abusive. It's kind of like a sentimental track in a sense. I do like that song. It uses the George Michael sample, Father Figure, which came out back in 1987. So it's kind of funny how that worked. And Don't Be Late, Don't Come Too Soon, featured To Me. That's another dope song. But overall, I thought this album was kind of weak in my opinion. It wasn't his best album. Like I said, it was way too commercial in my opinion. It's funny because a lot of people say that about Walk with a Panther, but I would prefer Walk with a Panther over this album. Like I said, to me, this is his weakest album in his discography. His later albums, like Greatest of All Time, 10, those other albums was kind of hit or miss for me. But I believe this album is actually out of print. But I wouldn't go. But you shouldn't get it. It shouldn't be too expensive. I got it for $2 at a thrift store. So like I said, I wouldn't go high and beyond over this album. Like I said, if you want to complete his discography, if you're trying to collect all of LL Cool J's albums, then by all means pick it up. But I wouldn't recommend it highly. The albums I would recommend were the first 6 albums, and that's it. And that's just my opinion. But like I said, my favorite albums are Mama Said Knock You Out, 14 Shots to the Dome, in my opinion, is very underrated, and Mr. Smith. Those 3 are my favorite albums. But yeah, LL Cool J Phenomenon, released in 1997. Pick it up if you can find it. Like I said, it's out of print, but you shouldn't pay more than like $2, and I'm just being nice, or even $1. But that's just me. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed that review. Stay tuned for more reviews. Peace.